gonna be like, I can't hear me anyway.
Good morning. I'm talking about social media and how we should all get off of it. But let me read this, and more importantly, as we open the show, the question. It is a question, and then I'll read a statement. Is housing shelter or an investment? Is housing shelter or an investment? Well, we happen to be in a housing trap, and to escape the housing trap, we must overcome the basic contradiction that housing can be both affordable and a good investment more than just a store of wealth. Are we going to have some fun with this?
We're going to have some fun.
I've got Dannielle Larkin on the show. I'm Jeremy Larkin. We're not blood related, but it's fun. We do share a last name. Hey, look how many people are last name Smith. Right?
Yeah, it's a great last name.
Or Entz, or there's definitely some Santa Clara names there, but there are fewer St. George names.
Yeah.
Right? Because people are always like, oh, that's a Santa Clara name.
I think Snow. I would argue that Snow
okay,
is
I'm going to give you Snow as a St. George name. Larkin, people say Larkin's a St. George name, but it's not terribly prolific in.
Right. And not till, what, your grandparents moved here in the 1930s?
Until Montreux and Herman came here.
Yeah.
So I've got Dannielle Larkin on, who is St. George City Councilwoman. And
I thought you were going to call me city royalty.
Should say also that. We actually rolled out a red carpet when she came in. She tripped on it.
I did.
Like, whoops, what's this thing doing here? Dannielle is also one of my good friends. I consider her a sister, and she's married to my cousin Darren. So, and fun backdrop that you're here and we're here together because we're on the Larkin Plumbing and Heating block.
Yes, we are.
Which is where Herman started. He didn't start it, but where these guys took Larkin Plumbing after Herman. You know, Larkin Plumbing started technically in 1938 and lost,
That's right.
Yeah. So, because if you go to Vegas to the old, have you been and seen the old sign?
I love it.
Yeah. I have a picture of me in front of it from 2018, I think, 19. And it says, since 1938.
And it's so great. They've maintained that same graphic all these years.
Yeah. Don't give rid of that.
Yeah.
So, but this block is where, my late great uncle, your, late father-in-law, and my father, Dale, Gray and Dale, built the Larkin Plumbing and Heating, and which became L&L Mechanical. And then when did Darren buy that company? 2000-ish?
It was a little bit before that. It was like in the late 90s.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Kind of like when they all started going off to serve LDS missions and stuff.
Yep.
So much fun history on this block, and we love it. And we love that every time someone comes in this building, they go, oh, wow, this just feels so good. And what a lot of our listeners don't know is this was an ode, not to just St. George, but to all of that. That's why there's sheet metal.
It's so great.
Yeah, that sheet metal was done by L&L Mechanical, right? As you know.
That's right.
So I incorporated sheet metal into our, like you guys won't see it on the show today, but the face of our reception desk is sheet metal. We have sheet metal, almost like what you call whiteboards, dry erase boards, in magnet boards in all the offices. And we tried to incorporate, I wanted it to feel old and new and urban and rustic and warm. And I think we got it.
And I have to tell you, you accomplished it. And you know who gets complimented for it all the time?
Who's that?
Me. And I had nothing
Dannielle,
to do with
you
it. I'm serious all the time. Your building is so great. And I'm like, I know. I love it. I knocked it out of the park.
Oh, this is good. This is good. Well, listen, congrats. And if you get credit, it's totally cool. It's totally cool. So, and look, we're going to talk about housing and real estate and traffic and walkability and what is the city's role. And I think we're going to incorporate trails. We're going to jam out, guys. We're going to be on till 9:00. Dannielle and I talking about all these things. City of St. George, and really, when we say City of St. George, to be fair, St. George City Council, of course, is making St. George City decisions. But this is really a Washington County conversation.
Absolutely, and we have a great county. Everybody works together.
Right.
We really do. The cities, the county, we work really well together. So it's a county-wide conversation.
Yeah, like because sure we know. We might know where the boundary lines are. There may be a lot of people who don't really realize when they've left St. George and run into Washington or left St. George and gone to Santa Clara. But at the end of the day, it's all contiguous. And look, there's a book that we're reading from today called "Escaping the Housing Trap," and it's such a deal. This is such a deal. that I want to set this up by saying events were set into motion that we don't know how to unravel nationwide and elsewhere. Yes or no?
Absolutely, with our housing.
Yeah, like
I would say it started after the Civil War, when the concept of a mortgage became a thing, and it was really propped up by the government saying, like, okay, banks, we're going to help you so that you can help people, and it started there, and it has gone since, and then it was really exacerbated again after World War II. When the GIs came back and it was like, okay, we need something to get people back to work. We need to recover from the war. And the government started really propping up housing and the concept of getting into housing, but not with cash, not with money that you have. So that's where it became complicated, and we're still in that space.
Because we see the old Sears and Roebuck catalog ads. Everyone's seeing these where it's like, buy a home, single family home, $9,900. No, not like that. We're talking about borrowing money, obtaining a mortgage, right? And this is, of course, there was the baby boom. And in the 1950s, as we talk about also in this book, Happy City, thank you, the single family American neighborhood was born.
That's right.
And we said everyone should have a single family home with a grass and maybe a picket fence. I mean, it's always fun to have a picket fence. I had one at my home, and you certainly don't have a picket fence, but you have a cool fence. And it's going to be largish, the lot, right? You have all this space and all this privacy. But let's keep going. So this thing unfolds, and we go through the 50s, 60s, 80s. Then we have this meltdown in 2008. Right. And I think people need to understand that the housing meltdown of 2008, and this is to comment that McCrae Hepler, we were a little interaction, Dannielle and I, with McCrae yesterday, and McCrae was on last week, Eaglegate title. He commented, he said, we just don't have the delinquencies. And people have 50% of homes in America right now have at least 50% equity, right? And 35%, for reference sake, are owned free and clear. We didn't have that in 2005, 6, 7, right?
Right.
We had people way over leveraged, which was part of the meltdown, right? So we come scrambling back from that. Homes fall to I like to say $11.50 for a single family home. Okay, they weren't that cheap. But we should have purchased about 100 of them.
I know.
Right?
Well, if we were looking at home as investment.
This is so good. And we're going to talk about this.
Yes.
And then we're going to bring this all the way forward as we talk about this thing that happens with COVID. And the government is so fearful. The government does something really kind of interesting. And I want people to breathe as I reference, like, what is this guy? Is this guy a vaxxer or an anti-vaxxer? Like, just chill out. We're just talking about what happened, right? I don't really care whether you got poked with the needle or not. It's the non-issue today. But what happened was the government made two decisions that, this is my opinion, this is my observation, that were seemingly contradictory. They stopped everything, and then they tried to hurry and jumpstart everything.
That's right.
Did I get it right?
Yeah. And throw
everyone stay in your house.
You
can't work. You can't do anything. Hey, and listen, quite honestly, looking back, frankly, in the moment, it seemed like a good idea for the most part. Yeah, a lot of us can be like, I can't believe it, like those guys. No, stuff happened. For about 60 days, it seemed like a good idea. But then they're like, oh my gosh, CPR, economic CPR, drop interest rates, give people money. And what happened to home prices? And today we have a median home price in Washington County of about $510,000. If we want to be honest with ourselves, Dannielle, an absolute real number, incomes here qualify for about a $300,000
That's right.
home. Yeah?
Yep.
Feel right?
Yep.
So
area median income would be that people should be buying houses for around $300,000.
okay, so we're 40%. So there's a company called, I forget his name, but I love him, and he's an absolute doomsdayer. It's called Reventures Consulting. If you love doomsday stuff, which in a way I kind of I'm fascinated by real estate doomsday conversation, it's all real data, And he loves to be like, I'm in Florida where homes are half off, which is happening because of Florida and hurricanes and insurance. But they have a I'm going to call it a calculator that tells you how over or undervalued a city is. St. George is 40% overvalued by median incomes.
Right.
Now, let's jump into this. We're a resort town and all this stuff. So look, we've set the stage, haven't we? But we're like 40% overvalued. If you just said we're not a resort town, everybody has to live and work here. People aren't buying second homes, which is actually not true because everyone doesn't live and work here. Lots of people are buying second homes. But 40% overvalued. But the problem, Dannielle, is the entire country is 20 to 40% overvalued. Yeah, probably.
And that can only happen in a situation where the supply doesn't meet the demand. That's the only possibility.
Right? So what do we do? Would you solve it? No, I'm kidding.
Well, and way back, if we go back to the back that we were talking about, where housing started to become investment rather than shelter.
Yes.
We really started creating an issue for ourselves because we have built an economy that is incredibly reliant on people's housing staying valuable. If our housing was to collapse overnight and nobody's house was worth anything, basically what that means is our entire economy fails.
Can I read something?
You can read something.
You are so spot on. Escaping the housing trap. There's a chapter called Can Home Prices Go Down? And we were texting about this last night. Just some friends like talking about the show and about real estate. I'm going to spare 2 full pages, but I'm going to give a highlight. America has created its own resource trap. Instead of oil or some other commodity, the resource Americans have ready for extraction is their wealth. That wealth can be that wealth used to be tied up in a family's home. An incidental savings plan capturing portions of a lifetime of labor. The home is now nearly the drill bit used to gain access to that wealth. He goes on to say, the primary purpose of a home today isn't to provide shelter. That is a quaint way to think about housing. And I think there's some sarcasm there. Mm-hmm. No, the primary purpose of a home is to create a piece of mortgage paper. Thank you for saying that earlier. A financial instrument that can be brokered, transferred, bundled, securitized, hypothecated. I've never heard that word until I read this book. Traded, collateralized, and gambled with. It's a piece of paper that represents the future earnings of all of us. The more Americans are squeezed financially, the more of that wealth they become willing to access. The more they can access, the more they're prepared to pay for the ability to become a homeowner. The more that they will pay, the higher home prices go. And then I'm going to read these highlights. We're trapped. It's a cycle that will only go one direction because, as he goes on to say, if home prices fall too much, the economy fails. We're in a regulatory trap. We're in a market trap. We're in a cultural trap because everyone thinks they need a single family home with a giant lot that they drive far to and from to work.
And can I add really quickly?
Oh, gosh.
Not only do people think that they need that, but they think that people who can't afford that shouldn't be anywhere near them.
Boom. Oh, my gosh.
So
hey, listen.
My neighborhood, if I own a single family home, I don't want anyone building anything near or around me that could affect me or my property value in any way.
So if you think she's crazy, when places like, I'm going to share this link with a few people, places like Jewel Plaza, City View, are you guys familiar with these? These are like high-end apartment buildings downtown St. George, right, where our friend Chris Connors has Farmstead Bakery. It's like the most popular bakery in the state of Utah. When those came to town, what did people say? We're going to become like what? We're
going to become like Las Vegas. We're going to become like Los Angeles.
Compton.
It's going to bring crime. It's going to ruin the property values downtown. It's going to create horrific traffic. And have you seen it do any of that?
Nope.
Jeremy and I both live downtown, so we've kind of have eyes on the prize right there.
I have literally, there we go. I shared this live Facebook. By the way, guys, we're live on Facebook, facebook.com/Jeremy Larkin. And after 9 o'clock, facebook.com/St. George Experts. After 9 o'clock, we will actually stay live and chat for another probably 30 minutes. So if you're liking this conversation, has it caused that? No. Let me tell you what it actually has caused. It's created vibrancy downtown. It's created energy downtown. It's brought business to downtown business owners, right? coffee shops and restaurants. It's created I talked about vibrancy. Let's vibrancy vibe. There's this vibe that's finally happening in our downtown where people are out and they're walking and they're moving around. This is fun, guys. Have you ever gone to a restaurant or a coffee shop and you walked in at a weird time of day and it was super empty? And you were like, this kind of sucks. Like you couldn't figure out why you were annoyed that the place was empty. Like you didn't want to wait in a line, like in a 60-minute wait, but it was kind of odd that it was freaking empty.
It's called lack of community.
Yes, people
Where's
like
the community?
this.
Where's the people? Yeah.
If you go to, say, Point of the Mountain, northern Utah, right? And I'm just going to say Lehigh, Traverse Mountain.
Point of the Mountain, when I grew up, meant the prison.
Yeah,
so it doesn't mean that anymore.
Yeah, is that classic? Because now look what's there. Yeah. A lot of money, right? Draper. And if you go there, I've actually been studying this for personal reasons. There are buildings like the ones we're talking about. There are a dozen within 10 miles of each other. And these are like high-end, beautiful gyms, pools, dog-friendly. We have this, but you're right. Like, what? You can't afford a home? You're going to be in an apartment? You shouldn't be by me.
Jeremy,
it's a cultural trap.
Yeah, what I hear you saying is we've confused what community is. We have created a space where community in our brains, in the back of our brains, means single family homes as far as the eye can see, nothing else. But weirdly, when we travel and we look for spaces that, to your point, provide community, the coffee shop that's full and vibrant, where we can meet people, where do we go? Where do you travel?
Yeah.
Do you go out to the suburbs when you go to LA, or do you go downtown?
Great example.
Where the vibrancy is.
2 weeks ago, I go to Waco, Texas. It's funny because Dannielle knows about this. We talked about it. And I shot a video that a lot of people saw on Instagram. If you want to see our Instagram, it's @Larkin Group. And I'm standing above an 8-lane freeway, plus there's a frontage road. This is in front of Baylor University in a Spring Hill Suites. It was a killer view, 7th floor. And I said, do you guys like this? This is gross, right? Yet when you popped into Waco's old, really kind of grimy downtown, but there's all these old buildings, and now there's a Marriott AC hotel and all these cool restaurants and murals everywhere. It was like, speaking of escaping the housing trap, it's like you had escaped everything, and you were, and every time we walked out of it back to our hotel, I was let down.
Yeah.
And if you think about places you like, which is, there's a designer by the name of Hans Lore that I love. And I actually shot a video in Dallas in a hotel lobby. It was a Renaissance hotel lobby. This place was so vibrant. Well, the whole theme that there were record players in all the hotel rooms. Like I played records in my room, found a new band I didn't even know. And I shot a video in there. I said, do you know why you like this? This is from an architectural standpoint. But you like it because it's flavorful. Now take that out on the city street. If you think of anywhere, to Dannielle's point, that you've gone in the world that you loved, to your comment,
anywhere in the world,
it is always somewhere downtown. Typically there was vertical around you. Typically it was narrow, and it was always walkable. Done. End of story.
You know what a great example of that is? That's a facade. Downtown Disney.
Oh my gosh.
Why did they create Downtown Disney the way they did? Why do people love Downtown Disney?
Sure.
Because it makes you feel nostalgic. You feel like I came home. I came home to my family. I came home to my friends. I'm in this space where I feel safe and I feel happy. Why? Because community exists in those spaces where it's flavorful and there's unique and different architecture, but there's also unique and different people. There's unique and different shops. And those kind of spaces can only be provided where there's a density of activity and humans.
Yes.
Right? You got to have people, and really, you got to have them outside of their cars.
Yes.
To engage and to like come into your shops. I brought this whole stack of books because
in an American Red Cross
bag, because I wanted to point out this book that you're referencing. I read this and I bought 40 copies of it, and I put it on Facebook, and I said, if you're interested, if this is something that interests you, I will bring you a copy. Why did I do that? The reason I did that, Jeremy, is because you and I have been talking about this for so many years, and I don't know how to have the conversation with our community because it's so complex. Like, how do we create a community that isn't exclusive to only the ultra wealthy?
Yeah.
And that ends up being a community that we all want to stay in and that our kids can stay in. And so the concepts in this book, I was like, we have to start the conversation because it's scary to people. And I don't want to sound like I demean people in any way by saying, like, I don't think people understand. I'm not saying that I understand and they don't. I'm saying that it's complex to all of us. And we have to start understanding it on a local level because it is not going to be solved on a federal level.
No, so
it's going to be solved locally.
Before we got on the show, we were just visiting and talked about, guys, there's a presidential election. You might have heard about it.
You don't say.
It's coming up. And a comment I made, I want to make a political comment, raise my voice and be bombastic,
Okay.
But you're going to love this political comment. I know that 50% of you are afraid of the other guy or gal winning. This is the first comment I'll make. It's kind of like I always tease with the high school mountain bike team. I'd say, good morning, you guys. Every day of your life led up to this one. Like it was supposed to be profound, but it was kind of like, well, for sure it did. 50. So my first non-profound comment, but it is in a way because we don't realize that half of the country is afraid of the other guy or gal winning. Okay. Number two, regardless of the core policies that really matter to you, because some core policies matter to people, and I understand that. Like it's a moral dilemma for a lot of people, and that's fine. I want to honor everyone who wants to vote for Harris or Trump. Like you're all honored.
And you all should vote.
Yeah, and you should,
regardless of what you feel, you need to vote.
Please vote. Guys, please vote. Even though I understand the Electoral College and all the stuff in Utah, however, they cannot solve this problem. I need people see me as I hope they see me as a real estate economist, like as a local economist of choice. This is the term we use, as a real estate economist. I need you to hear that Jeremy Larkin said from his lobby today, 2 weeks before the election, they can't resolve this. And Dannielle Larkin is on the show with us, St. George City Council, good friend of mine, and she is a stack of books, a student, guys, of housing and urban development, HUD, right? But you really are. In our final 2 minutes, and guys, we're going to stay live, facebook.com/St. George Experts, facebook.com/St. George Experts. Harris and Trump can't resolve this issue. They can play policies where they do or don't give away free down payments, right? Let's talk about locally. Let's just keep going. We're going to keep going.
So local is where it's at. And at the end of the day, what the local decisions come down to is political will. Because what we know is that we have a housing shortage. We know we have a housing affordability problem. And we know that our incomes in our community do not match the housing prices.
Flat out.
Those are just flat out facts. So what are we going to do about it locally? And if every single time something comes forward that is either multi-housing or gentle density, in all honesty, if you know what that means, gentle density means your next door neighbor puts an ADU in their backyard.
Yeah.
If that upsets you, we have a problem because there's somebody who is literally waiting at the doorstep to move into that space.
Yeah. And we have this in our final minute at least on the radio, we have this catch-22 where I'm just going to say we, collectively, it's like, no, don't build high density around me. And then this is one side of our mouth. And then out of the other corner, we say, where are our kids going to live?
Mm-hmm. And high density doesn't have to mean a 21-story building.
Correct.
Density can be, in a sense, gentle, meaning it can be spread throughout areas that have already been built.
Yep, guys.
There are so many opportunities for density.
We have Dannielle Larkin. The conversation continues. Visit us at Instagram at Larkin Group to hear more of the discussion. But you can grab on YouTube. We are going to have all of this on our YouTube channel, on our podcast. Of course, just look up the Larkin Group. Dannielle, thanks for being on the radio with us. For those who are staying on, facebook.com/St. George Experts. Over and out. Mal, tell us, are we good? Okay, let's keep going. Because this just, one of the things I'm learning about the way that we're handling this show, I've dilemmaed in my head. I'm just using it as a verb now. Well, how should we do this? And is this the right way? And should we pre-record it? For the time being, I'm doing it this way. And I just don't even worry about the fact that we segued on. It's like, whatever. People can pick up the content another day, right?
I think that's become the natural way.
Yeah, let's just keep going.
Yeah,
right?
it doesn't have to be so polished.
Yeah. So, okay, guys. So we're in the middle of a discussion today. We've been live on KDXU Radio here in St. George, Utah. I've got Dannielle Larkin talking about, well, happy cities and escaping housing traps. And I see a book here that you have called Affordable City.
Arbitrary Lines is about zoning.
The high cost of free parking.
The high cost of free parking
Oh
is
my
like
gosh.
this is the Bible of understanding
Okay.
the cost of free parking.
We're helping each other. Walkable City.
And this is the
Strong
original
Towns.
Strong Towns
Strong
book
Towns,
that was
boom.
written that actually talks a lot about transportation.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So we re-enter this discussion, which is, okay, I'm going to reiterate, hey, don't build any density near me. Hey, how are our kids going to live in this community? I mean, isn't it a classic double-sided?
And every one of us is thinking it, and I can't say that you or I can exclude ourselves from it because we
No.
all are benefiting, right?
By the way, I love my single family home.
I do too. And that's the problem, right? Like it's fine for us to love our single family homes,
Yeah.
but you have to allow for creative building that fits the need of the community.
Yeah.
That's where zoning has become problematic. And if we want to talk about zoning, I mean, we could do a whole episode just on zoning and why did it start? Euclidean zoning.
Wow.
You know, the city of Euclid was like, we want to be able to separate people according to uses, but they also wanted to be able to separate people according to
Where
skin
was
color.
this? Euclid? Would this be like,
It's in Iowa, I think, or Illinois.
Oh
I
my
can't remember
gosh.
now. Actually, Ohio. Where's Euclid? Maybe it's Ohio.
Yeah.
Euclid is a city in the middle of the country that sued the United States government and said, you know, you can't tell us that we can't zone. You know, and they won.
Mal, do you like the sound, by the way?
The sound as far as my
You hear us?
Yeah.
Okay. I'm just making sure. Every
She's
now
like
and
the
then-
sound according to what the words
Yeah,
are saying.
yeah,
No,
yeah.
I don't like.
Do you like listening to us talk? Okay. I'm just checking in. So this is crazy. So at a local level, and one of the things that we said as we wrapped up the radio show was, well, you know, you guys, y'all out there, as they say, think Trump or Harris is going to solve this. Trump and Harris ain't solving it. So
No, absolutely not.
so-
And the federal government, in fact, has been making it worse for a lot of years.
Yeah, they sure did. And we talked about, if those who kind of missed this element of our conversation, when you slam on the brakes, when you like literally close businesses and tell people they can't go to work, and then you hurry and try and like
Rev it back up.
jet propulsion the car again right after with crazy low interest rates, you set into motion events that you did not expect.
Right.
So what do we do locally? We talked about this.
Well, locally, we have to open our minds to creative building. We just have to, which means that we have to have the political will to allow it. And here's the thing about politics, I can tell you since I'm in politics. People don't dare to do things politically if they're going to get a massive pushback from the community. Well, Jeremy, who has the largest voice in the community? As far as like just community members, who generally has the most outsized voice? People who have resources.
Bingo.
If you already own a home, if you already have a job that allows you to show up to city council meetings, because you can leave early if you want to.
Yeah.
You're not working 3 jobs. So the voices that we hear the most loudly are people who already have a home, who already have an investment, and they view it
so
as an
good.
investment. And then the people who don't have shelter, we don't hear from. And so politically, it becomes challenging because you're like, well, everybody that I hear from says they don't want density.
Yeah.
And you say, well, who are we hearing from? We're hearing from the people who already have a home.
That is
people who have social capital.
a gigantically valid and astute kind of, perspective.
And those
right?
people matter. I mean, those people matter too. The people who have social capital and have homes, they're just as important. But that's the whole thing. Everybody in our community matters, and shelter is a human right. So it's a problem in my perception that we have a moral obligation to solve. This is not, well, they should have worked harder. Yes, we should all work hard. I don't think we should be giving people handouts. I think we should be giving people a hand up, which means there is the capacity for them to get into a home.
Well, and just to address this work harder, let me ask you a question. Do you think you work harder or the guy who does your landscape?
I think the guy who does my landscape works a lot harder than I do.
Yeah, right. Can we get real? Can we please get real with some of these arguments we make? As a matter of fact, it's been interesting for me as a business owner with soft hands. You ought to see them. I've thought about becoming a hand model.
They're lovely.
I've actually had some women in my life say they are good hands, but like beyond the touch. So
we could put our hands side by side because mine are not.
I have these lovely hands. So I sometimes have even this guilt, right? Or it's like I have used intellectual labor to build my world, right? Obviously, right? That's what we've done. Not obviously, I was an average student, but obviously meaning I don't do physical labor, I do intellectual labor. And I solve interesting problems for a living. And I create an environment that helps others create their own career. And sometimes I'll feel guilty, but at the same time, I love, and this is why I said we're just going to go where this goes today. I'm going to pause because I want to put the words in this. I often have this thought that I should become way more handy and fix things around my house and do this and that. You know, I pay a cleaning service every 2 weeks, Royalty Housekeeping. They do our building. Mm-hmm. Shara, they are freaking incredible. Does it surprise you that it's a Hispanic crew? No, because a lot of those amazing people take jobs that a lot of us don't want, right? A lot of, like, my kids don't want those jobs, right? So racist, the Hispanic crew would be the first to tell you, yeah, this is what we do, dude, and we're good at it. And they are so good. And they are so on point. And I love Shara and her team to come to my home. And, you know, every single time I'm like, Jeremy, stop being a lazy ass and do your own home. I go, no, you know what I love? I love paying them and I love tipping them every time. And this isn't
it's a shared economy.
But every single time I throw $20 extra on, right? Every time. It is the flow of money, right? And so, but here's the question.
And it's the value in every single contribution to our community.
Correct. And here's the question I start asking. When they come over, I'm like, damn, are they getting enough? I actually ask that question because I'm going to bring this all the way full circle because I see how hard they're working. Mm-hmm. And then I ask myself, I'll ask you, our listeners, do you think the average housekeeper in town can afford a home? Come on. They're working harder than I am. So this isn't about hard work. These are people who are adding a really valuable service. You know, Dannielle, Max drops a lot of hair. She knows Max. He is a black lab mix. Okay. Max drops a hair and I'm like, oh shit. Yeah. I rub him. I'm like, oh my gosh, stop petting him. He's dropping more hair. And so bringing this into this housing conversation, there's this ecosystem. Okay. It's a circle of life. Now we have people in this community who are doing beautiful things to keep the system going, and they can't afford a home.
That's right.
And then,
or a home doesn't even exist for them on the market.
Yeah.
So they might actually have enough income that technically they should be able to afford a home because they've got a steady job. It's a decent salaried job. It's a home cleaning service where they have dependable income. Yeah. They should be able to afford shelter. I'm not saying that they automatically should be able to afford a mortgage. You would hope that they would be able to.
But a shelter.
But they certainly should be able to afford shelter, like a roof over their heads. We have families that are living 3 and 4 and 5 families in a home because they cannot afford shelter. And inside that home, you have mother and father working, children going to school. I watch kids that get off the bus that come on the city bus, clear across town to get to school because their parents can't drive them to school because why?
They're working their butts off. They're working their butts off. By the way, they're working really hard. And as such, because of the obligations of their job, they're not at the city council meeting voting.
They're not at city council. They're not emailing us. They're not calling us. They're not showing up to meetings because they're just busy trying to survive.
It's been kind of fascinating. I was doing it's so interesting how I'll pause on some of these things. I'm like, how far do you go? I was doing some mindset work. Actually, I'm literally in a 6-month program.
That's great.
It's awesome. It's like through a business. It's a guy who works with guys that own businesses like mine in real estate. And he walks you through, there's actually 30 days of exercises. This is how this program started. And every day there's about a 15 to 20 minute audio with him. His name's Matthew Ferry. And then at the end of and every day is a message. Well, one of the things he teaches is recontextualization, which English is like, you took a thing that happened that seemed really bad and then you flip it on its head and you realize how it was actually really good. Mm-hmm. Well, we have had our butts kicked in some financial aspects in the last year in my business, and it was painful. And when I recontextualize it, I had a very interesting experience. The recontextualization, and this was this morning, I did the exercise, 6:30 in the morning. Do you know the greatest gift of having to rethink my finances? And I sold 2 investment properties. This is full disclosure. I mean, I could have competitors, who heard this. People are like, oh, it's just decided to get out at the top. I was like, no, I needed the money to fund our business. The recontextualization is I had lost touch with what it's like for people.
Mm. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. It was a gift. It was an absolute gift. Was I pulling quarters out of my couch? No, but I was like, oh gosh, cash flow is not here. Do you see the gift?
Oh, I see the gift.
Yeah. I was like, oh, wow. Because what happened, Dannielle, is for a couple of years, I just fed the properties that were losing money every month, the Miles home being one of them. I was like, I can't, there's no more money to feed it.
Right.
Did I go broke? Well, no. Broke is a whole different thing. Did I go without food? No. But when you start rethinking every single $12 subscription you have, that's a good exercise. And what it does is it brings you back to understanding what the core of our freaking community live like.
I couldn't agree more, Jeremy.
I was like, man, do I want to go where I just went?
No, and I see this every day because I get emails from people. And before I say this, I want to say that I know that these are written out of fear. They're written out of fear.
Oh, sure.
But I get these emails that are so hostile towards homelessness and towards homeless people, but they don't reference them as people.
Yeah.
They reference
the homeless.
them as them, the homeless, those people who are outside and I'm seeing them and I'm uncomfortable with seeing them. So how do we get rid of them? These are people. These are human beings that we are talking about. And really, what kind of a community are we if we do not open our eyes and our humanity to understanding why are there people who are homeless? And if you want to just try to write it off to because they didn't work hard, because they got into drugs, those things sometimes contribute. But you know what? The biggest contributor is lack of housing access. And that is the truth. And I am not making that up. Like that is what the data shows. If there was housing available for most of those people, something they could afford to get into, they would not be out on the street. So the fact that we have a shortage of actual structures for humans to live in is a moral failing of our community and of our society and of our world that didn't exist in the past. And it's interesting, there are countries where there is not a homelessness issue like we have here. I went to Japan last year. You do not see homeless because people, they're taken into homes. There's just a different ideology there.
Every single thing I've once you click on something on Instagram, right? The algorithm is alive and well. So because I'm a real estate guy and I follow these kinds of conversations, there's a guy that I follow now that talks endlessly about all of the housing in Japan, how clean it is, how respectful the people are. He left his laptop in a train station. And in the video, he said, Guys, I'm on my way back to the train station where I left my laptop. And by the way, I'm shooting this in real time, and I'm going to film as I'm going to go back, and it's going to be sitting exactly where I left it.
100%.
And it was there.
You know what blew my mind? We got on the train. We got on the train the first time, and I'm not kidding. A child that, to my eyes, looked like they could be 4, 5 years old max, with the tiniest backpack I've ever seen in my life, and they're standing with their back kind of to the train seat, just standing there. And I'm looking like this, like, oh,
Where's your mom?
the dad or the mom or the
Already
older
can see this.
sibling by himself, and stop at the next stop, and he just toddles off, and everybody's kind of watching him and helping him get off the train. And yeah, it's community. And the thing is, we have a fantastic community. I believe that people in our community love, they care, they want people to have quality of life. We live in a magical, fantastic community.
Yeah, I mean, look, I'm you and I are such fans of this town.
Yeah.
I'm like a cheerleader fanboy.
It's a fantastic place to live, but if we want to solve these issues, if we want to solve housing affordability, if we want to solve housing access, it is a political will issue.
Tell us about this.
We have to allow people to be able to
I want
build
to talk
what
about
they need to
political
build.
will. Yeah. That's what I want to know. So, because I looked in here and I looked at these, at least the two I have, Happy City and Escaping the Housing Trap, and that was the main point in chapter 1. Like literally, when I first started the book, was we need to allow. You just said it. Allow people to build what they want to build.
And what they need to build, what they want to build, what they need to build, and what people need. You know, we have these developers, these real estate agents, and then we also have single families who would like to just build their own home. You know how challenging it is to be able to, like, start to finish, build your own home now? Because we have so many regulatory hurdles that it makes it, if you don't have a lot of money, then you can sit and wait and, oh, it's going to take me another 6 months to be able to get this done. Oh, it's going to take another 6 months for this. Okay, I'm already paying on that lot that I bought. Like, you can see where you have to have the financial access to be able to do that. Wow. Simplifying some of our processes. And we've been working on that. Like, at the city, we have really been working on it, but we could do so much more. But the political will has to be there to be able to loosen the regulations. Why did we create regulations in the first place? A lot of it was safety. So way back, we used to build kind of garbage houses, but there was plenty of them. Now we're building these really high quality, safe houses, and there's not enough of them. We need to meet in the middle. Every house doesn't have to have travertine.
Well, look, let's talk about housing expectations just briefly. You know, you saw the video that, because I sent it to you, about in Dallas, Texas. And it was obviously a little funny story about the guy shooting a man and going to prison, but it was about the guy that started Dallas, Texas, and how 7 of them, 5 kids and parents lived in this 1-bedroom cabin. And of course, the point I made in that was, like, I know I'm not insinuating at all. However, could a family of 7 live in 1,800 feet? Well, in our world, people would say, no way. I don't know. I mean, I guess they could if it was a 4-bedroom, 1,800 square footers. There's lots of 4-bedroom homes. Like, really, there are quite a few. Right. Does it need to be on 1/3 of an acre? What if it was on 0.05 acres? What if it was, you know, there's the most character in the state of Utah. There are about 2 places, and it's from a new development area, it's Daybreak, and from an old development, it's the Avenues, and the Harvard, the Yale area in Salt Lake. But if you look at Daybreak, it's kind of fascinating to me. They've built a city, and every home is, like, so cute. They're all on little postage stamps, and they have just, like, shared common areas. And it, like, ekes us out. Oh, I need privacy. Even me, I love privacy. It's like I want to walk around naked in my yard. I don't, but meaning that's the level of privacy I want.
Right.
But that's a cultural issue.
But then it's so interesting, Jeremy, because when you travel and you go to Europe, you jump right into the space that's tight, right?
And
like
you like it.
And you like it. You're like,
this
why
is
does it
cool?
Why does it feel so great here? And I'm not saying everybody has to live in an urban space.
Yeah.
You really don't. Everybody doesn't have to live in an urban space, but you have to allow the people who want to do it.
Yeah.
And urban spaces have to be allowed to exist, and they have to be allowed to be creative. And here's the thing. There should be no neighborhood in our city that thinks that it sits in amber, that thinks that it sits untouched. Every single neighborhood is an evolving, living organism. So when somebody comes in and they buy the house next to you and they're going to transform it and they're going to put an ADU in the backyard, if you lose your mind and you spend the next 6 months going to city council and trying to get your neighbors all riled up, like, we don't want this kind of stuff, this is going to tear the neighborhood down. That's the type of thing that makes it almost impossible for us to overcome the challenge.
Tell us about ADUs. Like, what is
An
what
ADU,
what is it, and
okay.
what is the city policy on?
Well, so the city policy used to be basically no ADUs. You could have a mother-in-law apartment, but you had to kind of prove it, and it was really challenging to build an ADU. That is one fantastic
You had
step
to prove
that
it was
we've
your
taken.
mother-in-law.
You had
Just
to
kidding, but I get it.
You actually did. You
Oh,
had
you
to prove
did?
it was family. I mean, nobody was investigating it, but if somebody complained,
I hate this
you were
woman.
supposed
She
to
hates
only
me.
have
Yep, this is valid.
family.
No, just kidding.
Yeah,
just
you were
kidding.
only supposed to have
That's such a
family in
culture.
it.
That sounds like a sitcom anyway.
Yes, very. Everybody loves Raymond.
How hilarious. I used that in King of Queens to, they literally nailed all of the cultural presumptions and assumptions
Yes.
about families.
They were right on that, so people thought it
my
was
gosh.
so funny. Well, so it used to be basically almost illegal. We have changed that. You can build an ADU anywhere in any city, any home in the city can build an accessory dwelling unit. It used to be very specific to what that is. The state has changed those rules a little bit and will continue to change those rules. So, I mean, you can have an interior accessory dwelling unit, meaning you have like somebody goes around your backyard and accesses your basement and there's an apartment there. You can have an exterior dwelling unit which would be more like a casita. I have an above garage.
The above
accessory
garage
dwelling
is like
unit.
one of my favorite things in the whole world.
Yeah. So we have a garage that we built separate from our home downtown, and then we built an accessory dwelling unit above it. And it's just one of those gentle density, low impact ways to create more housing, more density. And the word density makes people so nervous. But here's the reality. If you want to live in an affordable city, you need more humans per acre to pay for the infrastructure.
100%.
And people are, the infrastructure is going to get overrun. No, the infrastructure literally breaks down at the same rate, the major infrastructure, and you have 10 people paying for it instead of one.
This is so beautiful. Yeah, when you get into like an apartment building, right? Where, how many units are there in Jewel? It was like 240 or something like that.
I
or
can't
50.
remember the number.
It feels like it's a couple hundred.
Yeah.
So you take Jewel, you take City View. These are obviously the ones that people know, and suddenly you have, well, let's say there are 200 units. We'll just round down to that. On one city block, it's like a half of a block. 200 humans paying for the infrastructure.
That's right. That has
200
to be
families,
replaced,
200
by the
families,
way.
yeah.
That's another thing I want to bring up is cities don't do a good job paying for themselves. We do a great job starting the city.
That was also Strong Towns? That was an incredible podcast episode.
Yeah.
You sent it to me.
Yeah, because and then you go, well, now we've got the sewer in and we've got the water line in, and okay, we're good to go. We've got the street down. Oh, now the street has a pothole. Well, now we need a little more money to fix that. Oh, there's a break in the sewer line. Well, now we need to fix that. Okay, now the sewer line's 30 years old. The whole thing needs to be replaced. We need to dig it up. And we look at that, and then we're also in the same breath, conversely pushing for, we just want single family homes as far as the eye can see. Well, do you think those single family homes are going to like it when their property tax quadruples? Because the city has now aged out to the point we're not letting new people in. We're not bringing new money in. We don't want density, but we want a quality of life that we have had all along. And now everything needs to be replaced.
Yeah.
Because we want to sit in amber. We want to say, like, we want to freeze ourselves in time. We don't want to change. And change is really the lifeblood of a city, a healthy city.
Well, I've talked with McCrae last week. I love to reference places like Salina, Utah, or Gunnison, or even Beaver and Fillmore for a very long time. You know, the COVID and the movement, the actual migration of humans out of California and places like that actually created a little growth in those places.
Yeah.
Like Shane Whitwer, of course, you know Shane. We were talking about how they're building hotels in all these towns now. Suddenly, there's like a couple of decent properties you could stay a night in Beaver. But I reference these cities, and you know what I'm referencing, where they just stopped.
Yeah.
They just stopped. There was just no more change. Just everything stopped. And so
It's
you
like Pompeii.
yeah, you would drive like I went,
Frozen.
you know, and I mentioned last week I took my son and we went out to the high school mountain bike races in Gunnison, Utah. It's like you drive through Salina, you drive through Gunnison, and you're like, look at all these little abandoned businesses. And it's always like a roadside tire shop. And they look like, speaking of Disney, they look like they should be put in
Cars.
Radiator Springs in cars and be cute again. And the funny thing was in Waco, one of the cutest boutiques in the entire Magnolia, this is where Chip and Joanna Gaines have all their property. One of the cutest boutiques was an old tire shop, and they'd like a corner tire shop, and they'd painted the entire building pink, and there was live music outside. But my point is, yeah, if you don't have change, you end up like these little places that are just like, they're literally cities that died.
And there's so many
They stopped.
of them. Yeah.
Thousands of them in America, probably
But yes.
thousands, not hundreds. And in Utah, there's probably 50. You know, when they're like on the news, this photo came in from blank city from Bob Smith. You're like, where?
Mm-hmm.
You know, towns that you've never heard of because they died.
And Jeremy, you know, interestingly, not only have small towns died, but all over the United States, there are large towns that have bankrupted.
Wow.
And you know where we see them? On the East Coast, where the towns are just old enough that their infrastructure has failed and they can't afford to replace their infrastructure. So like it's like getting cancer, right? Like you get one bad move and you don't have savings or you don't have insurance and all of a sudden it can just upend your financial situation completely. That's what happens to some of these towns.
I just heard your sound got better when you leaned
I
in there.
know. I realized that too.
Well, so I would say if you turn it, then it'll save it. So this is fascinating. So from the city perspective, so we talked about ADUs, and this is fun for people to know. You could literally have an accessory dwelling unit anywhere in the city of St. George boundaries with permits and
Sure.
yeah, guys. You can't just drag like a thing in your backyard.
Start building with pallets.
Yeah, like
Start a
hey, what's
pallet
up? And
house.
I think that's always going to be an issue, and that we could argue that one on another show. Like, are impact fees enough? And but it goes back to I think some of the same conversation. Well, how the heck is the city supposed to pay for stuff?
Right.
It's supposed to be just because I do think that people think it's supposed to be free.
Sure.
Like, oh, this is just free. And you know, the way that we move about in America is so free. Meaning, you know, several years ago, I road tripped from South Carolina all the way back to St. George. And the thing you never even think about that we just take for granted, we just got in the car and started driving. Mm-hmm. Do you think someone checked on us? No, there was no one like, hey, what are you doing out here? Where are you going? Where are you headed? I mean, if you got pulled over being erratic, sure. But my point is, you remember the ads, feel free to move about the country? Was that Southwest Airlines that used to say that? You could just go. And there's a point I'm making. I never asked myself, who paid for this road?
Sure.
I didn't pull into wherever, Kansas, to the cool little road stop that I read about online. I never even asked, like, I wonder how this city works. I wonder who pays for this. I wonder if this city is solvent. I just used it. Right?
Yep. And that's what most of us do because it's convenient. We don't have to think about it. And I have to give a shout out to our city. Like, we have a really well-managed city. Mm-hmm. My point really isn't that it's been poorly managed. It's that we want to stay well-managed into the future, and that will involve change. Mm-hmm. Like I said, you can start out building a city. That's, in a sense, the easy part. Put the infrastructure in. It looks pretty. It's shiny and new, right? That's the easy part. The hard part comes when things need to change, which they do. Because like I said, it's this ever-evolving organism. So when we need to change things and when we need to allow things, I shouldn't say when we need to change things, when we need to allow things to change. That's where the problem comes. And that's where mismanagement happens because usually there isn't the political will to do the hard thing. And the hard thing is to allow creative things to happen that are sometimes uncomfortable for people.
Yeah. Well, and as a business owner, I mean, I could have people listening to this right now, right? Upstairs, because we're shooting at Larkin Group headquarters. But one of the hard parts about being a leader is pushing people.
Right.
Right. So folks come in and they go, I worked really hard this week. And then the leader stands up and says, hey, you know, we could have done more. Mm-hmm. That's hard for them. And it's also hard for me. Right. And do you see how that's similar to being in city government?
It's exactly the same.
Yeah, because it's kind of like, well, someone has to deliver the news that you are holding yourself back. And from the city management perspective, someone has to be the one to go, I'm going to courageously, you look at this four-way stop. I've talked about this four-way stop. That's why this is such a cool location to talk about this. This has pissed more people off and solved more problems.
It's the best decision. It's
Yeah,
the
and
best
solved
solution.
more problems, right?
Okay, this
Because
four-way
last
stop-
week we talked about Dixie Downs.
Okay, here's the thing. This is a great example of making a decision that is best for the whole as opposed to the one. So the only reason this four-way stop would make you angry is because it slows you, the one, down. It slows you down a little bit. So you might get to work 3 to 4 seconds slower.
Yeah, I mean, if in a terrible case scenario, 30.
30 seconds slower. Okay, the benefit of this four-way stop for the whole is it creates safety. So which one is the higher priority? Safety or speed?
Safety.
Safety
all day long.
Saving people's lives is always, always, always going to be more important than you getting from point A to point B as fast as humanly possible. Do I want you to get to work on time? Yes. But do I want you to get to work safely more than I want you to be able to speed to work and put other people in danger? 100%. So I will vote for safety over speed every single time. Do you think I get criticized a ton for voting for safety over
Yep.
speed? Constantly.
I already know what the criticism be. She's progressive. She's too liberal. Because that's another thing we've done is that we've decided culturally, this is fun, this conversation. We decided culturally that anybody who wants to be progressive in terms of like, oh, let's have walkability, let's have bikeability, let's allow apartments. Oh, you're liberal. Isn't this, see, we tie that into some sort of moralistic, like, let's keep that out of it.
Right.
That's a whole separate conversation. Like, she must also love, and then they insert
Right.
all these things they perceive
And all
as,
of a sudden you want to be a communist.
Yeah,
Like you
like-
go from 0 to communist
this is my point.
in 3 seconds.
Like, guys, slow down, right? So on this note, so we have a four-way stop outside of Larkin Group headquarters. What it does is it creates walkability. So what would happen before, for those who have never heard us talk about it, is people would come zooming down 700 East, because, by the way, we're on about a 4 to 5% grade right here. It's steepish. It's certainly a freeway overpass grade.
yeah, your car gets going.
Okay. You can get going fast. And then what would happen is people coming across Tabernacle would pull up and they'd look and they'd look and they'd look and they'd look. You know, the look, you guys know. And you're like, are my eyes failing me? Did I look both ways? And they would shoot across. Well,
And then they get T-boned.
yeah, they get T-boned. We have there was at least an accident a week. We have a university nearby. I don't know if you knew this. I have their sticker on we're Utah Tech fans and supporters here. We have a major student housing development that we share our property with. And what this has done is this has made it so much more walkable. I like it. I walk. Like, I'll do this kind of thing because you guys living downtown do the same thing. Yesterday, I walked Max to Dogtown Daycare just because. And then I left. I walked 1 block north and 1 block east total. And Max was at daycare. I walked up 500 feet to O'Reilly Auto Parts. This is kind of fun. I purchased windshield wiper blades for my car that I was not in. I asked the guy for a bag because he didn't have me, but it was too bit long for a bag. I grabbed a bag. And why did I grab a bag? Well, because on my whole entire 2-block walk up, I'd seen nothing but trash. Do you know why I saw trash? Because
Because you were out.
I was on my feet.
Yeah.
You don't see trash in your car. I filled from there back to here, 2 city blocks. Oh, I could have filled way more. And I found some gross stuff along the way.
I've walked that stretch. I've picked some interesting stuff up.
Yeah,
along there.
I've picked some stuff up. Anyway, I won't say it. And I found some interesting stuff right downtown, right? I filled up a whole bag of trash. I enjoyed the sunshine. It was so fun. Sometimes I'll walk across this crosswalk and I'll walk over a block and I'll walk up to that grimy little, I'm just going to say it. There's at 800 East, there's a gas station.
Oh, yeah.
Like, guys, guilty pleasure. I love actually what I'm drinking today. If anyone notices, is called Amino Energy, and this is actually really clean. But I love Cocoa Berry Breeze. But I can be guilty of going to get myself a Monster Energy drink, sugar free. I love them, right? But what I'll do is I'll earn it. So I'll walk, right? I mean, earn it. There's no sugar in it. There's no calories. But I will literally walk to the gas station because I can. And this is where I want to.
Well, and can you comment on the mental health effects of that?
Oh my gosh. Do you know what I tell my people all the time here at the team? I say, listen, when you have a deal blow up, I'm going to put this in a real world. I tell them across the street is the St. George City Cemetery. I call it the Dead People's Park. It's a joke. We love it. It's our thing we tease here. As you know, your late father-in-law and mother-in-law have
they're right
right there,
here.
right there,
Yeah.
and our grandparents, and many of my family. And I have a plot. Allie and I have a plot. I tell my team, you walk across the street to that lovely grass, and I want you to do a lap. When you have a deal blow up, or when you get hung up on by 4 people because you're lead generating, because we do this in our business, and you're making calls. When you need, so you say comment on that the mental health. I tell them, you go walk. One day I had a guy, he was literally losing his proverbial shit. Like I thought I was going to have to admit him at the hospital. And I said, I won't say his name. He knows if he were hearing this. I said, I want you to go walk that block. I said, I actually want you to go one more block. So I'm going to go not just to 100. I want you to go to 200 South. He did it. He came back. He's like, okay.
I felt better.
Okay.
Well, Jeremy, I want to say something about that because you said, I am people who think about these kind of things, like how does our community work? How can it work best
Before we leave,
to benefit people?
I want to talk about the Zen Trail and the development.
Yes, we can talk about that.
That's our last thing.
Okay. All I want to say is we call it progressive.
That's like pinned it.
And you think about it, what is it really? Like what?
What's progressive?
Before we had cars, what did people do?
They walked.
They walked and they got out in their community and they interacted with people. How is it like this weird liberal ideology to believe that humans need humans? And that like human scale development is what blesses people's lives in a mental health capacity, in a just like living the best quality of life that you can possibly live. How is that progressive? To me, that's human. It's humanism.
Correct. And it's fascinating because what made me think of the Zen Trail and the development is I've written something that I'm going to be sending to county commissioners and all the things that they've asked us to do.
Right.
And in my letter, I said, here's why this opinion is highly valid. I am an ultra trail user. I'm talking 150 days a year on the mountain bike trails here.
Right.
That's heavy use.
Yeah.
And I'm a realtor who benefits from development. And I'm like my opinion, you ought to listen to it, because I'm not a developer, realtor only, and I'm not. Because you know what they refer to, the people who want to protect the trails, those hippies, those granolas, those tree huggers. I am both, right? Well, here's where I'm going.
I think we all are.
Yeah, but
if people are being honest with themselves.
But a lot of people. Here's my point. A lot of people never step foot on those trails, right? I benefit in all the ways. Well, I'm going to tie this back to your conversation, guys. Do you know that I have voted Republican my entire life? I was born and raised in St. George. I was born and raised in the predominant faith. Everything about me would be considered conservative. And let me tell you something. We have too many damn cars. We need way more apartment buildings. We need way more density. We need way more walkability. We need bars.
We need preservation of our trails.
We need preservation of our trails. We need bars, and we need coffee shops. We need all of it. Well, that's pretty progressive. Really? Because look at my voting record for what it's worth.
Right.
So here we sit. We should be progressive on these issues. By the way, you can, just for fun, from a political perspective, did you know that you can vote for Trump and be anti-abortion and realize that we have too many cars and we need to preserve our parks and our trails and have walkability? Do you know you can do both? By the way, I'm not saying, I'm trying to give the extremes. You can be all the way one way and also see these issues. I'm afraid that from a political perspective, we think it's either or.
We have created camps.
It's crazy.
And you get in the camp and you circle the wagons, and there's no, symbiotic relationship between the two camps, and it's incredibly unhealthy, and we must change it.
Those guys,
Yes.
them, right?
Yeah.
So I love development, okay? I love growth, not because I want people here. As a matter of fact, I was born and raised here, and I used to be able to like build an underground fort downtown and like do whatever the hell I wanted. So,
in fact, the old Larkin Plumbing shop right here, you guys had free reign of this whole block.
We did whatever we wanted, and my entire part of what we would do for fun as children is we'd go leave 525 South, 600 East, and then when I was 10 and older, Morningside Park, 6 blocks away, and we would ride our bikes up. And I remember it was hot. We thought like this hill was too steep. It's so comical now as a guy who rides. I'm at 2,350 miles ridden this year. And that's almost exclusively on a mountain bike. So I ride a lot, right? But I'm like, the hill was too steep. We'd come up and we'd fiddle around, and we'd sometimes be 3, 4, 5 hours dinking around the shop, and we just got to do what we wanted. And we'd go like throw things around in the sheet metal shop. But look, I remember what it was like, guys, when we were a quaint little town. And I love development. And there's a thing that's happening, is a gigantic swath of land, what they call Zone 6, Mose Valley. This is if you go out to Green Valley and you go up the hill to the Green Valley Spa and Sports Village and Las Palmas and all these places. You go off the back and there's a place, they call it the Zen Trail, and this whole area. Well, it is up for sale from Utah State Trust lands.
Part of it.
Yeah, part of it. Yeah. How many acres is it total, you think?
I can't remember, but about 40% of it is protected in perpetuity, but then about 60% of it they could put up for sale.
So,
but it's, by the way, it's zoned. They're selling it, but they're selling it as a open space zone.
Yeah.
So whoever was to buy it, they'd have to get it rezoned.
Yeah, they'd have to get all the approvals, which...
So there's political will there.
Because we could stop that, right?
Correct.
So, guys, and what I wrote in my letter, I allowed it to be a working document for a week now. I literally took my little kids out there when they were like 6, 7 years old. I started riding there in 1996. That's when my first time I really started riding there. I spent 8 straight years working with middle and high school mountain bike racers, the joys, the memories, and the argument that they're making is, they meaning Sitla and folks, well, we have to sell this land to raise money for the schools. Here's the dealio, guys. Sitla owns millions of acres. Do not let them, it's my show, I can say what I want. Do not let them make you believe they have to sell that to raise money to build schools, okay? There are lots of ways for them to raise money to build schools, and there are other acres to sell. And the point I want to make is, if you don't stand for something, well, you stand for nothing. And at some point, guys, in your life, see, none of us want to stand for anything, because if we stand for anything, someone's going to be mad at us.
Someone might criticize. Then we put ourselves in the space where we could be criticized.
I think at some point you need to stand for something. And my attitude is we need to protect that. And one of the arguments that was made by Sitla in some of the meetings was, well, look, you guys said you don't want us to build the whatever you call it, the road over the top. What do we call it? The Northern Corridor. So look, it's either the Northern Corridor or this. These are such cute arguments.
Which, I'm sorry, but how does that make any sense?
Thank you.
I mean,
thank you.
The Northern Corridor, they're completely separate conversations that, in my opinion, are being attached to each other in a manipulative way.
Correct. Correct. Right. You know all the ways that you would like manipulate your kids as a parent, because you did.
Yeah.
The white lies, the things you did.
The bribes.
Yeah, the bribes for the best, for their best, for their own good. I love Sitla. I think Sitla's, by and large, school and institutional trust lands administration. I know all about it. And how do I know about it? Because for 3.5 full years of my life, I helped them develop Fort Pierce Industrial Park. I literally processed contracts to sell the land. Me, like I was preparing them for Jennings Group. I've been there. Really? How could you do that? Well, that was my job. It's full BS. that it's either or. Guys, you have to stand for something. Look, they just, they paved paradise and they put up a parking lot, the famous song. You can't develop everything. You can't. You just can't. You cannot, right? And I think, Dannielle, what you have to look at is you have to look at each parcel and say,
highest and best use.
Yes. If you look at that parcel, it is novel for outdoor use.
And once it's gone, it's gone.
It is gone. Like the way the topography and the rocks and the cliffs and the canyons, it's like, you can't go, well, no, you guys go further out to ride your bikes. No. The answer is no. And so how do we help this? So I want to help. Where can we send people? Because I want people's support on this. I'm going to look here. I'm going to find the page right now. I had it and didn't have it, and I should have it. Is it the TASU? No. Hang on a minute. I'm going to look. What are your comments?
Well, there would be Conserve Southwest Utah that's supporting that, but then there's also all of the biking groups, all of the climbing groups, all of the outdoor groups, the universities. I mean, this land is so valuable for what it is currently that, to me, the highest and best use has already been declared on that land.
Oh, I love that. The highest and best use has already been declared. I'm gonna link it in our Facebook right now.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, so really
Save Zen.
reaching out to make sure that your voice is heard. What we were talking about earlier, Jeremy, is that we only hear from the people who have the loudest voices. Often people who are, out enjoying these outdoor spaces, they don't know that they're about to be run over.
Nope.
Right? They're just not engaged. They're not engaged politically. They're not engaged with the latest movings of the government. And so it really is important. I know for a lot of people, they feel like they can't stomach it. It's like, I don't want to be involved in politics. It makes me sick and it's so contentious. And I agree with all of that. I have lost plenty of nights of sleep over the contention of politics. That being said, I also know, to your point, if I don't do something, my doing nothing speaks volumes. And so, in these kind of situations, like if you don't speak up for the things that matter to you, you're not saying anything speaks volumes.
No, and the loudest voices, as you said, I mean, if we look at the last, especially 5 years across the United States of America, we had so many moments where the vocal minority dominated. I'm talking on the national political landscape and political whatever, but we watched it play out. We watched it play out on CNN and Fox, and
we hyper react to the loudest voices.
We do. When you're like, that is not the core of America.
That's right. And it really does frustrate me because I hear this, like, this is what everybody's thinking. This is what everybody's feeling. No, that's what the loudest people are screaming.
Yeah.
People are much more complex than that. We don't fit into two camps.
Yeah.
There's, arguably we're each different. There are no camps in a sense. Like we're afraid to be individualistic and we're afraid to put ourselves out in the space where you and I could have an open conversation and we're going to disagree on half the stuff we talk about. That's scary because then we're going to have to explain, oh, wait, why do I feel that way? Or we might even have to look internally. Wait, why do I feel that way? And am I willing to change? And am I willing to hear Jeremy out and say, you know what? I walked into this room believing this. And I'm walking out believing something different because I listened to him.
Yeah, I obtained more information.
And he convinced me that he was right and I was wrong in this particular situation. We're so afraid to do that.
Oh my gosh, we're afraid. Well, yeah, because it's the assumption of anyone that disagrees with me is opposed to me versus saying, tell me about your perspective. Like, tell me why you feel that way. Tell me, I want to know more about what you like about this or dislike about this policy. Right. And so, yeah, it's very hard to know that we'll disagree. So I commented actually on Facebook briefly on something this morning. So what I do around the big election, the presidential election, is I don't watch almost any news at all. Okay. Most of us who are sane and healthy don't, because that's part of how we say sane and healthy. Right about this time, drum roll please, last night, I turned it on intentionally. I sat down at 8:30 p.m. and I turned on and I alternated between two channels, drum roll please, Fox and CNN, intentionally. intentionally I watch both because there's a spin both ways. And I want to hear what's happening. You know what I mean? I literally spent about an hour and a half. I was doing kind of two things at once, but I was bumping around and I listened to some Sean Hannity, and then I listened to CNN Live, and then I was on Fox Live, and then I went over to CNN talking. They were breaking down like the Kamala Harris last night doing the town hall. It's really helpful.
That is very helpful.
Right? Like to just be like, okay, what's happening out there? What are people thinking? What are people saying? And then understanding, I'm watching it also, understanding that it's all spun at some level.
And that fears are being stoked.
Sure,
Stoke fear, stoke fear, stoke fear, instead of like, how do you come to the table? How do you quell the fear? How do you bring people together?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So last two items. I knew we'd go longer than we said we would. This content's going to live on in perpetuity. You and I ran into each other on Tuesday at the grand opening of a new piece of river trail, which was so awesome. Did they say that we're now at 74 or 78 miles of paved?
72 is what I thought they said.
Okay, so neither was right.
72.
72 miles of paved trail.
That's right.
Around St. George.
Yeah.
So
and that's just in the city of St. George. So if you extend that out, we're heading into Hurricane, we're heading into Washington. Washington City's actually doing a great job extending their trail network.
I loved the ride. And this is if you go down to Convention Center and you hop on the trail. Most people understand this. Right by the Convention Center, you can cross a bridge and you start heading toward Bloomington. Well, what they've done is they built a trail now on the south side
of the bridge,
of the bridge that takes you all the way past Walmart. You can pop off at Walmart.
That's right.
And then all the way to Bloomington Park.
All the way to
and
Bloomington
it was a loop.
Park, and then you can loop
I was
around.
like, wait, we have a new loop. There's like multiple loops.
Yeah.
It was so much fun. And the funny part was I enjoyed socializing, and then I took off ahead on my own, and I was really happy just cruising along. And then I stopped and I was visiting with people, and I went right by Walmart, and I realized that a lot of people e-biking now and using bikes that can carry groceries and things can actually get there. That was totally and completely awesome.
Yeah.
Right. That was one thing I wanted to say. And the last piece I wanted to ask you was a question. What, from the city council perspective, because you're in this all the time, what is I'm not going to say number one. I want you to give me, what are the couple of biggest complaints that you guys get kind of on the regular? There's got to be 2 to 3.
Traffic. People complain about traffic, but then interestingly, they also complain about taxes. And they don't want their taxes to go up, but they want us to widen roads because it's this complex idea that if you widen the roads, the traffic will go away. People believe that, and I understand why they do, but it's completely false.
We know this from these books.
Yeah, you widen the roads and the traffic decreases for a minute. And then what you really do is induce traffic demand. And then a lot more people feel like, oh, I can drive more now because we've widened the roads. And your tax burden just increases and increases and increases. And it's not just the tax burden for the initial installation of that road. It's the tax burden in perpetuity of fixing that road and replacing the road. Oh, and then widening the road again because now the traffic's bad again 10 years later. So now we have to, do another $300 million. So I feel like our biggest complaints are things that are so complex to overcome.
So traffic's one.
Traffic,
What's
water.
another?
Water. Water is a big concern. I would say traffic is the biggest complaint just because it's something people hit, And honestly, it's kind of we don't have really bad traffic yet. Like,
No.
you go on River Road and you might be slowed down by a few minutes.
Yeah. And by the way, slow down by a few minutes. Well, I mean, all day long for sure, but certainly slow down by a few minutes at certain points of the day.
Sure.
Which is 8 and 5.
Right. And if you were to build every single one of your roads for that traffic volume, then you would be building massive roads that actually sit empty. Think about it. Most of our roads, like this road out here that I've been watching right in front of you.
Yeah, she can see Tabernacle the entire time.
One car every 30 seconds.
Which is why the four-way stop is so great.
Yeah. Yeah. So you think about it, you build a road for that volume of cars, and you're building something that really isn't an asset. It's something that you have to maintain, right?
Oh my gosh.
Like we count our roads as assets, but how are they assets? Can we sell them and make money off of them?
Which is I want to encourage people to check out one of our favorite podcasts is called Strong Towns. And one of those episodes they talked about that, how people misunderstand city budgets.
Right. So I mean, you ask what our biggest complaints are. They're things that are really hard for people to understand because it's like, I'm going to call and I'm going to complain about the traffic, but my fix for it, I don't want to have to do the things that it would take to fix it. And so that's where we're always in this dilemma of trying to help people understand how a city interacts, how it moves, how it grows, how at the end of the day, we're really just trying to do a few small things. We're trying to build wealth for every resident so that every person has their own bank of wealth that they can have their own home, have their own food, have their own life, build their own quality of life. And then I feel like just delivering basic services to people.
I read in the book Happy City, and I'm going to reread this. This will, anyone who's listened to our show, this book really chronicles this Peñalosa who became the mayor of Bogota, Colombia.
Yeah, that guy is really interesting.
And he said, Peñalosa insists that the unhappiest cities in the world, the ones perfectly calibrated to turn wealth into hardship, are not the seething metropolises of Africa or South America. And to our last week, we talked about this. The unhappiest cities are not the poor places. The most dynamic economies of the 20th century actually produced the most miserable cities of all, and they are the cities totally dominated by private cars. And so, to that point, it's a little bit like such a funny example to me is I-15 through Salt Lake City, the Salt Lake Valley. The classic statement is that damn thing's always under construction. Yeah, well, because we all keep driving on it.
Right. And we keep demanding to drive on it.
I'm like, well, and then like, so what do you want? Like, they have to fix it. They've had to expand it. Of course, it's always under construction. As a matter of fact, it probably should be because they have like, what do you want to do? You know, when you leave, like right this summer, leaving Park City has been terrible back toward Salt Lake. Massive potholes this summer from the wintertime. Well, do you want it to stop snowing? Because that's why all the people went to Park City is to ski. And do you want to stop driving there? Because you had to get there somehow. Do you see the complexity of this?
Well, Jeremy, I think it all speaks to convenience. Like we've become a culture of we want everything super fast, super convenient. Nobody get in my way.
I personally experience it. Why do you think we're texting and driving?
Right.
We're texting and driving because we're afraid that we don't have enough time.
Right.
What? We've been given, because of this, more time than ever. And the irony, of course, the catch-22 is, yet it just made us more busy.
It made us more busy. It induced demand.
Yes.
It's a perfect example of inducing demand. Like, so you now have more capacity.
So people text you all the time.
So do you take it and use it for your free time? No. You didn't translate it that way. You just translated it into now I can work 80 hours a week instead of 40. And that's what happens with traffic. And that's what's tricky in a city. Like the complaints that we get are often things that you're like, there is a solution, but you're not going to like it. Because the solution means we all drive a little bit less. Like we're all more organized. If you can walk to, pick up your bread, it's 5 blocks.
Yeah.
You start doing it because it makes more sense than you getting in your car. And
and here's the fun.
Shift.
Here's the fun PS, because I see these little St. George City Life magazines, and I'm always, and they're cute little things, and people come in here, and I'm always like, what do I want to tell people about our town? This is what I wanted to leave on, because when we came in today, I saw these. If someone asked about our town, what would and this is maybe rhetorical. What do we tell them, and what do we want to tell them?
Right. Well, at the City of St. George, the organization, the theme or the motto is the brighter side. And there's these twin pillars, activity and optimism.
Oh yeah.
And I like that. John Pike told me that when I first got elected. He said, it's really simple. Activity and optimism. Those are the two things we focus on. And I mean, obviously those are simplistic, but they're also just really true.
Yeah.
Like we're a place where people are active and where I think overall they're optimistic.
Yeah.
And part of that optimism is gained from our access to the outdoors because we have, our mental health is boosted. We feel happy about living in such a beautiful place, a clean, safe place. I mean, places stay clean and they stay safe, not because of enforcement. That's a small part of it, but they really stay clean and they stay safe because the people who live there care.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, yes. Speaking of Waco, Texas, it was so funny when I left that town and I was like, man, that place was kind of dingy. It's like there was this 6-block corridor that was cute. And if you walked, when I say out of it, I'm talking if you stepped 50 feet out of it, it was dirty. And I came back to St. George and said, it's really good here.
Oh, yeah.
Like this place, you pull into town off I-15 in either direction. It is clean. It really is safe. And gang, you know that your life becomes better in every single way if you biked and walked somewhere. Every way. You feel better. You are healthier. There are so many layers to that.
And Jeremy, can I add,
when
you're out biking and walking, talk to people. Reach out to your neighbors. Like that. I don't know if you've ever read Jane Jacobs.
No.
Yeah, she's like a classic when it comes to cities and how cities function. And she wrote The Death and Life of Great American Cities. It's like this most classic book ever. And she lived in New York City. And she was the first person to really talk about, why does the bodega on the corner matter? Like, why is it important to your life? And how would like a big shop that is owned not locally, that you don't know anybody in it, how would that change like your quality of life? And she just got down into the minutia of city life and community life and how we interact with each other and why those like little interactions matter. And a lot of that was getting out, talking to people, walking, riding your bike, reaching out to your neighbors, having conversations, sitting on the stoop, telling stories. Telling stories is a big part of it. And I don't know if you've heard Lyman Hafen's, that podcast that he started to do.
Phenomenal.
It's so healing to me because he's telling the stories. Yeah, he's telling the stories of this place. That matters. People, when I come to a new place, I want to hear their stories. Like, tell me the stories. How did you build this place? It's beautiful.
Yeah, we have to maintain that. Guys, it's been so fun. Dannielle Larkin, Jeremy Larkin. We've talked about St. George City Council. We've talked about traffic. We talked about walkability. We've talked about housing density. We've talked about housing affordability or non-affordability. We're going to come back again. Over and out.